the first thought when a hurricane comes for a local is the surfboard waxed? I mean, how soon can we get out there? And so
we had our priorities straight.
That's right. You got to have the board, and your priority is you don't get waves like this. You got to hit the big ones. It's okay if we die. It's what we're made for. It's what we're made for. That's all
right. You can always have more kids. Yeah,
always. Come on. Yeah, of course, if you don't like being frozen. Listen, let's start this interview and we'll get into all that too.
Okay.
Hey, Youth Worker on Fire. This is Doug Edwards, and I am here with Pepe Mesa, who Pepe and I entered Youth for Christ about the same time. Pepe, I don't know if you realize that. I don't know if you were up in St. Augustine when the hurricane came through and we had to evacuate. That was my first Youth for Christ meeting. And so you may not have been there at that particular one.
No, I wasn't at that. No.
Yeah.
No, you were my roommate at Intern School.
There you go, up in
Rockford. Don't you remember I loaned you that $50?
Remember, I paid you $100 back, man. You charged me double interest. Come on.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to
do. That's right. No, I think they put me in a coma state right after intern school, just so I could kind of get through some of that and process. It's my ADD side. You cannot just let me run around once I get a lot of information. So I don't know what you felt like, but I felt like somebody had just dumped a world of information in me on that period of time up there.
It was crazy. And I had to stay 2 weeks longer than you did.
Did you? Why?
Because I didn't have enough of the theological schooling and stuff. So they made me stay 2 more weeks.
79 Youth for Christ. You were in Youth for Christ quite a while. Then you were in church for a few years. Mm-hmm. Andy McDaniel, a mutual friend of ours, mutual trainer of ours, came to Miami, took over leadership there as an executive, and invited you to come back. Mm-hmm. And so you were there for a while with Andy, and then a new administration came on, which we'll get into a little bit later. And that ended after a while. And now you are in Kernersville, North Carolina, in my home state, near my hometown, Thomasville. I think it's 30 minutes from you, something like that.
Oh, okay. Thomasville. Okay.
Thomasville. Yeah. I think High Point's 15 minutes from you, something like that. 15, 20?
Yeah, 15, 20. Yeah.
So just on the other side of that.
So everybody on this podcast is going, what?
Well, if you don't know Carolina geography, and especially the Piedmont area, everybody knows the coastline and, University of Wilmington and all that, in UNC Wilmington. I know you got one in Washington, D.C., girl, right?
Yeah, I have
and a girl in New York City.
Right. Uh-huh.
Publisher.
No, the one in New York City is a publicist. So she works with all kinds of stars and stuff. And it's kind of cool. Well, my youngest is the one in New York. My oldest is in
your youngest in New York.
Yeah, okay. The oldest is in D.C. working at the Kennedy Center. And my middle child, my son, the other two are females, girls.
There you go.
And my son, middle child, is in Winston. He's just trying to make it. He's working at Outback Steakhouse. He's married, and he gave me my first little grandchild.
So, no, good for him. Good for you guys. You guys are close to the grandchild. I mean, listen, Miami forever. You were born in Cuba. What, 3 years later, they moved you to the U.S.? Everybody moved. I don't know if everybody moved.
About a year and a half. Yeah, when I was a year and a half old, we moved to the state.
Yeah. You were very fortunate to get out, from my understanding, at that point from Cuba, and then to be in Miami all these years. And man, what a culture shock being in North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Catch us up to date from where you are right now.
Well, 3 years ago, I moved to Greensboro. When I moved up here, I started doing a little volunteer work with Greensboro YFC. That good friend, Louis Cheney, was the ministry's director. Fast forward about a year and a half, almost 2 years, about a year and a half. I came on staff as a part-timer, and I'm running 2 Campus Life clubs. Campus Life works with kids, basically using the school as kind of the focal point. And so I have a middle school, Western Guilford Middle School is where I do club there, and I do club at Southeast High School. So it's a challenge. It's having been in Miami so many years, you kind of get ingrained, and you were known and you knew everything. And now here, I'm a new guy, and I have no idea what's going on here with these people.
Right. And Pepe what? Pepe who? Right. And
biscuits. Who knew?
that's right. That's
Cookout
right.
steak. Everywhere you look, there's a Bojangles.
Oh my gosh, you're saying stuff. Well, Bojangles, that's New Orleans, but we'll allow them in.
Yeah, but it's been
but those others that you hit there, Cookout, man. I mean, that's a big deal there, and you got to get Lexington barbecue though. You've got it's Lexington's like number one. Don't tell the people in Greensboro. They got listen, barbecue is king there. So
yeah, well, but I learned you don't use the word barbecue though, right?
No, I mean I do.
Because barbecue is specifically pork.
That's about
I don't know when you go to have in Miami you go to fire up the grill, you call it, hey everybody come over for a barbecue. You don't do that
for barbecue.
It's a cookout.
Right.
You eat barbecue, you don't do barbecue.
No.
Yeah, in Miami you go to fire up the grill, you call it, hey everybody come over for a barbecue. You don't do that
for barbecue.
It's a cookout.
Right.
You eat barbecue, you don't do barbecue.
No. It's not a Barbie.
That's another word.
It's not Australia where you're going to the Barbie. Let's have a little throw some meat on the Barbie. No. In Texas, if it's barbecue, that means it's beef.
Oh, okay. Here it's pork.
Right. Here, barbecue is pork. That's right.
Yeah. Well, and those are important things to share.
Those are very important things. If you're going to North Carolina and you haven't eaten Lexington, number one, Stamey's in Greensboro, number two, Kepley's in High Point.
Whoa.
You probably haven't eaten Carolina food yet. So
I'll have to put those down on my list of things to do. Yeah.
Things to do, places to see. I mean, obviously that's all we do is eat barbecue in North Carolina. The rest is kind of like extra, but so tell me about it. So you're part-time now, 20 hours a week, which translates into 120 hours in youth worker terms. So
pretty much. And it's been great. Again, like I said, it's a challenge because I'm not real familiar with the culture. The Southern culture is just Miami. It was very unchurched, learning the cultures. And it's just amazing how open the schools are here to ministry. If you come in with the right attitude of I'm not coming to see what I can get out of you. I'm just coming to see how I can serve you.
Serving. If you're going in as a servant, they're going to find a place for you. You're going in with attitude and I'm here to change the world and conquer, then they're going to sense that right off the bat. Go ahead, Pepe.
Oh, sure. And they have a lot of needs. They just need a lot of people to help out. And, even the dumbest little things, it gets your foot in the door and you start meeting kids and, kids see you around, you become a familiar face, and it's a lot easier for them to start to get involved with your ministry. And your ministry isn't just that meeting. That a lot of time we think, well, campus life meeting, that's it. That's where it all happens. But it doesn't. That's just a little piece of it. And so with any ministry, youth, campus life, whatever, I think every time I'm on campus, if I'm there cheering a kid on at a sporting event, and he never comes to a meeting of mine, but I get to know him. I learn his name and all. He knows there's an adult there that cares. And when he has a crisis or he needs to talk to someone, and if he doesn't have anybody, well, he knows, well, I've seen that guy. I know he cares. He's always there. I can talk to him. So yeah, you just want to go in with a servant's heart. I could become spiritual here, but that's what Jesus did. He came as a servant. And so we go to the schools, not with knowing all the answers, but just, I'm here. I'm a warm body, and whatever you need me to do, please let me.
I mean, you're a veteran of that. And that's why I do this podcast, because you've done this for years in one area. I think 15 years, your first slot in Miami Youth for Christ. Is that right?
About 12, 13 years. Yeah. But
translates into 80, but but even when I went into church ministry, I was still in the same community, and that was one reason I went to the churches that I did go to, is I was able to still stay connected with the same kids, the same community, and not kind of dump the kids. I'm moving, see ya. Right. And no, that's huge, because longevity is one reason I do this podcast. One reason I wrote the book, Burn Up, Not Out. And because average youth pastor, I don't know if that's changed. I've looked it up. I can't find any change anywhere in the stats on 18 months is like the normal time for a youth worker. I think campus life is 18 minutes, but I mean, it's just, you come into that environment, you go, you want me to do what? So I remember we went through 22 staff in 6 months, but ours was a very unusual situation. This is the original Miami haunted house. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, were you doing that? You did that fundraiser. They did that one for a long time.
Yeah, way too many years. No, that was great. That was the best contacting tool in the world.
It really was, and that was y'all's fundraiser.
It was one of our major funders. I mean, it was huge. But Jim Green, the legend in Miami and Youth for Christ, the creative mind that created the haunted house there, and each night we had to have about 100 kids come to staff the house. Mm-hmm. And so, man, we had kids coming out of the woodwork to be able to be a monster in it, and you spent just so much time. Quality.
Some of them didn't have to have a costume at all. Big monsters.
Pretty scary.
Pretty scary right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big deal. It was your fundraiser. You guys raised money there. They charged, which is a great deal. You guys knew how to do it. You do it right. You all had a great reputation. Thanks to Jim Green. What a great man to this day still. And and they did it as a fundraiser because you could, and you led people to Jesus at the same time. It became a major entity in the major city of Miami.
It's true. Yeah. If you said campus life, anybody who wasn't directly involved with you, their first thought was, oh, you do the haunted house.
That's right.
We would have 100,000 plus people come through every year.
Positive tool. Now, some people, they don't like anything to do with Halloween's a horrible thing, but God has a way of changing things around for himself and that sort of thing. But let's get back to Greensboro. You're volunteering now.
I'm working.
No, excuse. No, what am I saying? Volunteering. It's
volunteering.
Yeah. Right. You're volunteering the other 80 hours of the 20 that you're paid for.
Yeah.
And for those of you who haven't been in youth work for a long time, I say there's no such thing as a part-time youth worker, because if you're doing it and continue on, your heart's there. You can't stop. You just can't say, well, I can only do so many hours. Oh, sorry, guys, I'm off today. I'm off. You do have to get a day off. And I did that. I learned to do that through Youth for Christ and didn't implement it until I got married. And then you get where you better be implementing a day off. But you're up there. You're doing it part-time. Mm-hmm. And tell me some of the things. Tell me about Ginger, your wife, and how she responded to this whole move. And, the big deal is if we're going to get married and stuff, we have spouses, whether you're the male, whichever, you could be a female staff, male staff. If you get married, your spouse is in it too, whether they take direct participation or not. So talk to me.
Yeah, no, Ginger's she's a trooper. God, we've been married 36 years, and I don't know why she's still.
No, I get it. I get that. My wife's amazing. If your spouse has stayed with you all these years, and they don't always, people do get divorced, then it is amazing. They are amazing people.
Yeah, and it's and like you said, it's a tough thing to learn to flip off the switch when you're in ministry, and sometimes, I know I did. Looking back, I put in way too many hours at times, and not enough time with my family. Although I tried to be around I was around for my kids when they were doing activities and stuff, but just not enough. It's never enough. And so I look back, and for anybody who's in it now, it's balance. You really got to keep a balance, and you got to get over yourself. God can still do stuff even without you. Go figure.
That's right. He throws you into these things, and you feel like, and then you start running, and you forget that you were not the person that got you in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
And our wives have become single moms many times over. I counted the hours. I'm not even going to repeat that right now. But there's a lot of hours that a lot of days, weeks that my wife was a single parent.
A lot of times she fills in when I need to have a need. Honey, I need cookies. Okay, and she'll make 47 million. I need to. We sew this little thing here and make it into. Yeah, I can do it. So she's incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I'm lucky to have her. My kids are lucky to have her, and
yeah.
as they say, they're unsung heroes. They don't get enough credit.
No, they don't. But they will let you know occasionally that they are unsung heroes, right?
That's with a big stick.
With a big stick.
Unsung
That's
hero
right.
with a big stick. You got
That's
to
right.
watch
That's
out.
right. I probably done it. I probably did it.
Okay.
What was your worst time in ministry? We're going to go to best, but what was your worst time?
I'll say two real quick.
Sure. No, don't go quick. As much time as you need.
Actually, it was just before I came on paid staff, but when we were in Miami, we had two of our students were murdered. They had disappeared the night before. The staff guy that was running the club was my best friend, so he asked me to go to the home of the boy Brian, and he went out driving around trying to see if they could find him. That afternoon, I was at the family's house when they really basically learned over the TV that the car had been discovered, and he and his girlfriend Belinda had been murdered, and that was real tough. Not just dealing with it personally, but with the family, and then they were leaders in the school, and so it rocked the school. So that was a tough, really tough time.
That is horrible. And listen, everybody's going to want to know: did they find out why, or was it random?
It apparently seemed random. They caught the murderer, but they were going off, did what couples do to go find a place to park. Mm-hmm. And apparently he followed them there, and where they went to park, he murdered him. So,
oh wow, it's like a movie, a nightmare movie.
Yeah, it was horrible, and so he was in the system for quite a few years, and probably about 30, I lose track, 30, 40 years. They finally executed him and stuff. So,
oh my goodness,
and it's interesting because on Facebook, when it happened in January, every January, all the posts start coming back up, pictures start coming up. We miss you, and this and that. Yeah, so that was
absolutely.
Hard.
And by the way, guys, you're going to. You don't have to be from Miami. You think that's just Miami? It is not just Miami, and things are oftentimes worse sounding in some of these places than they are when you live there. Pepe will tell you that some things are worse, some things are better, and not at all like the news portrays them. But if you stay in long enough, and once again, wasn't even full time. But go ahead. What was the second one?
Well, it was my time ending in Miami. It was just kind of awkward. It was one of those things where they decided that I wasn't needed anymore. I hadn't done anything, and that's probably my biggest question is why. But they decided that my talents and gifts weren't needed, and that was huge. In that I just kind of started questioning. Did I misread God? Have I been doing the wrong thing all this time, and suddenly somebody is setting me straight? Or I just wasn't real sure. The interesting is I never doubted that God was going to take care of me, that He had my back, but I just had a lot of questions, and so my next step, am I done with ministry? Because this happened just a few years ago, 3 years ago. 2015. And so, I'm at an age where nobody's going to want a 60 plus year old youth minister. And I'm thinking, man, God, is this what I do? I thought you called me to this.
Right.
And I struggle with it. And then I realized that, the calling didn't change. It didn't mean I had to get paid to do what God was calling me to do. And so wherever I had, from that point on, getting my head together, when I had an opportunity to minister, I do that. And that's why, we moved up to Greensboro, besides the fact of trying to get closer to our kids, or in New York and DC. Financially, Miami's an expensive place to live, and we had a big mortgage, and it was just, without a full-time job, we couldn't stay afloat. We're going through our savings really quick. And so, the only thing we could do was sell the house. And then, God just, again, guys, he just blesses incredibly, where we lived in an expensive area in the sense of, Miami, and our house wasn't anything special, but because of where we were, it demanded some high bucks compared to Carolina. And although we didn't get to sell it for probably what we could have if it was kept up a little nicer, it still was more than sufficient for when we moved to Carolina. And he blessed us, gave us a really nice house, and with a beautiful yard. I mean, I'm not used to having, half an acre of land in Miami. You don't have that. And being able to pay it off with what we were able to pay off our old mortgage and pay off this new house. And so we come up here and we don't have the mortgage hanging over our head, and which was a huge stressor for my wife. Financially, she was just really stressing out with where we were. But God led us up here, and again, the call didn't change. So I was thinking, well, maybe if I can volunteer at a church, if I can find a church I was comfortable with or whatever. And I had friends here at Youth for Christ, so it was pretty natural. I just, so I started going to Lewis's club and started volunteering there. That was a middle school. And I met Meg, who does high school here, and I started volunteering at her high school. And, actually, to be honest, being a volunteer is more fun than being paid. But, and God opened the opportunity, where Greensboro YFC was in need for some people to step in. Yeah. Again, I'm old, I'm not going to be, doing this forever and ever. So I'm kind of a, stopgap kind of thing. And now it's, I'm going on my second year of being at these schools that I'm at, and so God's just he's good. He may not promise, or hopefully everybody that's listening knows this, but there's no promise that life is going to be good. There's no promise that but the promise is he's going to get you through it, and he's always with you, and he's going to provide your needs. I may not have the fancy car or whatever else, but I got what I need. We pay our bills. I shake my head at all the stuff that's happened and how God's taking care of me. So it's like, wow, it's incredible. So, yeah.
Well, that's a big deal. And what if you're younger, if you're older, you're in your 20s and you've just entered into ministry, or you've been doing it for a few years. Why would you listen to us? Why? I mean, we're old. Churches are discarding guys like us. But why? And that's the question you'll have to ask yourself. We've got all this longevity in us. We've stayed places, a lot longer than 18 months. I was in Youth for Christ 6 years. Pepe has been in Youth for Christ multiple times. He's in for his third time now. And long-term times, and then as well as the church for 29 years. Why would you listen to us? But what I've tried to tell the church I was in,
Doug, you're breaking up a little bit.
I was like, is you should be, in this as echoing. Is it better now? Is it better? You can't tell? You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It sounds better. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it says I'm stable here. Are you not?
No, I'm okay.
Is it working now? Okay. Is it echoing?
No.
Yeah, I said it was unstable. Are we still good? Gone again? Gone?
You're echoing now.
Okay. Well, Pepe, listen, I can hear you. So do this. if you hear me, the one thing I would say,
You're fine right now.
okay,
So keep
is
pushing.
that keep, you should treat the older guys like they're principals of high schools. And that's the place we should be. If we're in an older and student ministry, not only can we deal directly with students, but we're also there to direct volunteers and to give the wealth of wisdom that we have of what works and what doesn't work, but also be willing to do new things. I learned that from an old friend of mine who's famous, called Dr. Jay Strack, and you know Jay. And Jay says, no, always on the cutting edge, always changing. If you hear some of the things he's doing in one of my interviews with him. So go ahead and tell me some of the things that you've taught. Tell me some of the best moments you've had in student ministry.
Oh, yeah, there's just a lot of little snippets. I mean, when you've been in it for a while, you're blessed. A lot of times when you're in the middle of the battle and you're running that youth group, and you're thinking, man, that kid's a knucklehead. He's never going to make it.
Yeah.
The blessing is, and strangely enough, old guys do Facebook. Facebook allowed me to reconnect with a lot of kids from way back, and boy, yeah, I'm amazed at where they are in their walk with Christ. There's I could say a young man, he's in his 50s, in Salisbury, Brian Farmer. He was a wild guy down in Miami in campus life, and he's been at First Baptist of Salisbury for, I can't remember if it's 20, 30 years as a youth minister. 20, probably 20 some, and solid as a rock, and key guy in Carolina in the Baptist circles of youth ministry and all. And it's just like, wow. I don't, there's no credit to me. It really isn't. It's just, it's amazing that God uses us. And you go, what? Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, the credit to you, and Jack Larson said this. You know, Jack just passed away, and but through COVID got a hold of him, and but he was at my church for a while. That he and Georgiana and Juliana, and he had one sermon that to this day, and it was called "Just Show Up," just show up, and so you did have something to do with it. You were obedient to God, and you showed up, and the benefits were somebody was there. God put you in the right place at the right time because he had designed the meeting. But it feels like that we've done nothing. I get that. It feels like we've spun our wheels. How did I do this? Right.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not dropping gold nuggets all over the place and people going, ooh, in my life. It takes time. Probably the greatest thing I ever learned in youth ministry was early on was that when we were at Intern School. I don't know if you remember Ron Rickner. He was
absolutely remember Ron. Yeah,
he taught a session, and his emphasis was Zechariah. My mind is being old. I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sure. Zechariah 4, I think 6 and 7, and basically Pepe paraphrase was. It's not by power, not by might, but by thy spirit.
Yes.
And that was a turning point for me in ministry because I was scared to death. I was like, oh, God, how am I going to do this? Oh, I'm never going to, because I've seen a lot of the best. I saw Jim Green and Ron Rickner. I saw a lot of the best. And I was scared to death. And then
they were intimidating, weren't they?
Oh,
I mean, for me back then, they were it's like, I can't relate with these guys. I don't even want to talk to them,
150 kids to show up to the thing, without trying. It's like, wow.
And Rickner had one school. His claim to fame was he did not run all over Miami. He had one school, and he was one of the most sought after speakers in Youth for Christ because of his success. Yeah. And he did not run around doing 30 schools like I did, or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I had 2 main schools, but still too much. And I heard him, one school.
Yeah. And again, going back to that scripture passage, I realized I can't do it. I don't care how sharp I try to get, how many tools I try to get, how, much knowledge or whatever, and charismatic, it didn't matter. It was God's Spirit. And it's like you said, like Jack Larson. So I just need to show up. I just need to be willing to serve and be open to what God's going to do and let him do it. And he does it. It's just, whoa, who's thought of it? It's amazing.
Right.
So, I mean,
and churches are looking for, the thing is, churches don't know what they're looking for. A lot of times, Campus Life, Young Life, Crew now, used to be Campus Crusade, and Fellowship of Christian Athletes, they still struggle with what they're looking for too in a person, but they seem to do a better job than most. They do have some systems set up to try to see, who God's got for them. Do they line up? Are they? And sometimes, and a lot of times it's still hit and miss. Churches as a whole, some of the larger ones maybe do it right, but they're not even looking for what they're looking for. They don't know what they don't even ask the question, who am I looking for? It's vague. And so you go into a system and it's difficult because people are angry at you because they have unwritten expectations, and you coming in have unspoken expectations. And so there's collision because no one knows what the true expectations are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah.
But at the same time, it seems like, and that's why parachurch guys that have been in parachurch for a long time seem to do well in churches. Not that, and to be honest, church was easy for me compared to 6 years in Youth for Christ. I didn't have to raise my funds. What? Yeah,
that was a big plus.
Right. And then but there's trade-offs. You've got a lot of pressures that you didn't have in Youth for Christ. You have a lot of freedom in parachurch organizations, but at the same time, if you don't raise your funds, you don't pay your bills, you don't eat. And in a church, you may get paid, but if you don't meet certain expectations, you get beat up. There's trade-offs no matter which place you're going to. You know what? We didn't really completely cover Ginger. Give me some Ginger phrases that she would say to you to let you know that, you haven't, that either to keep you going or sometimes to straighten you up. Do you have any Ginger phrases that just, I asked Jay Strack that, and he says, oh yeah. He said, he said, there's times I'm going, why am I still the youth guy? Why do people only want me to come and do the youth, be the youth speaker? He says, I'm old now. Can I not be some other guy? And he says, and my wife pulled me aside and started charting out. She says, now let me get this straight. Now you speak to the NFL, you speak to MLB, you speak to NASA, all because you're the youth guy. You have, Rock the Universe, all this, all because you're the youth guy. Now, so you're telling me that you don't want to be the youth guy anymore. He says, and only a way that wives can say, he says, and I think they enjoy saying those things too, So straighten her up. But there's anything like that? Do you remember one thing that finally Ginger said to you one time just to encourage you?
Well, I don't know that she has anything to say. I mean, she's encouraging. She's always, you're doing, that's great. It's that kind of deal. But to correct me, it's more of a look. Yeah. When you see then you go, okay, something's not right here. We need to talk. I can't think of one particular phrase that she uses. She's a very prayerful woman.
She didn't used to be until she met you, but yes, I get that.
Well, I had a tendency on a lot of people to increase their prayer life.
Me too. There are prayer warriors out there.
And the fear of God gets in them.
Thanks to me. Right. Being a mess.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm a mess. I mean, the reason I know that God wanted to use me is because I'm a mess. There is no doubt. No one in my life has ever doubted that God is the credit for whatever happens good. There's just, not with you, you and Ginger are, in fact, you should write a book, Why I Married the Perfect Woman, because she sounds perfect. My wife, there's times she'll go, suck it up. Be a man, I mean, just little phrases to encourage you.
Those are your key things. You have them on a t-shirt, I'm sure.
That's right. I should make those t-shirts. My wife said no, but well, Pepe, anything you want to say to youth workers to encourage them to keep going when they want to quit?
It's like just going back to what I just had said with the scripture passage. It's God does it. You just have to throw yourself out there. My testimony real quick is I was a real quiet, shy kid. Speaking in front of 2 or 3 people was more than I can handle. Just had a few good friends, and so not real big social kind of guy. And at a conference, I just felt God tugging in my heart, telling me He wanted me to go into ministry, youth ministry. And I was like, God, are you sure about this thing? I went into campus life because that's what I really knew the most. The first few months, I was like, man, I'm over my head. I can't do this. And it wasn't about me. I would tell you, remember, it's not about you. It's what God can do. Put yourself out there, make yourself available. Relationships, it's not programs. I can give the best talk in the world and think I nailed it, and it goes nowhere. But I can give something and go, oh man, I sure messed that up. And then some kid comes up and says, wow, you hit me right where I am. And I'm going, what? Again, it goes back to God does it. It's relationships, people, the kids, if you think back of what made a difference in your life was usually not always, that sermon. It was, that person, and multiply yourself. If you're in one school and it has 1,000 kids, how can you do that? You need to have a bunch of volunteers to be there that have the same vision for the ministry, the same vision for reaching out to kids, that will develop those relationships and let the kids know you have an adult who cares when you need them, and you share the love of Christ with them. And if they say, that's stupid, man, I can't believe you believe that kind of garbage, you still say, okay, that's all right. Let's go play. Let's go have a hamburger, and you just hang out. We go back, we mentioned Jim Green. I think he had shared talking to a kid, and the kid basically shut him down and said, no, you're dumb. He goes, well, because I love you, is it okay if I kind of every once in a while keep reminding you that God loves you and stuff? Oh, okay. And, he just hung in there with him, and eventually, God used that. Or if He doesn't use it now, 5 years down the road when they're off on their own and they're struggling, I don't know how God does it. It comes back to mind, and they find somebody, and somebody kind of reaps the benefit of what you sowed. You hang in there. It's not easy.
It's planting and reaping, planting and growing and reaping. And none of it in reality is us. The only us is we show up where God puts us. We stay planted until He moves us.
Yeah. And, like you said, boy, longevity is huge. How many times kids just go through so many different changes? They need somebody that they can depend on, that's solid, that's always there. And I can be told, I'm sure I'm wrong, but when I find someone that's in youth ministry and it's a stepping stone, I don't do that. You're using a kid for your own benefit. Just step up to, now I'm going to become a pastor, associate pastor. This is where I start. No, get out of there.
That's why you're the perfect guy for this interview, Pepe, because those of us who were trained and God pulled us in. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, he drugged me into student, and not drugged, but drugged, pulled me, and me into student ministry. And you want people to know that it's either a calling or it's not. Well, why go in if it's not where God wants you? And because it messes more things up for you to stay a short period of time, people pat themselves on the back and they go, there are guys that ran circles around me when they would come into student ministry in our area, but they were gone a year, 2 years, 3 years, and some in 5, but they would be gone and they would come in guns blazing. And I did that too when I came here, but because Youth for Christ had basically, there's a book I'm going to write. And in fact, I started it called God's Boot Camp, because he sent me through so many scenarios, so much pain before I even got to Youth for Christ, and sent me through pain again in Youth for Christ, just getting me tough enough to handle it. And I know you know that, because you cannot be in ministry as long as you are without having those God boot camps. But tell me about the most fun thing that you and Ginger have ever done personally. People need to know that you have a personal life. You and your family, maybe.
I do. Oh,
well.
No,
yeah. Most of us haven't, but I mean, I thought maybe you had. I don't know.
We're kind of homebodies, so I think our highlights has always been around family. Whenever we've been able to do stuff with our kids, and now our grandson is 21 months old. Oh my gosh. We're just eating that up like crazy. So anytime we just hang out with family and just
travel has not been a big deal with you guys then. Mainly just
I wish I could travel a little bit more, and we were hoping for this Thanksgiving time to travel up, but now it's a little bit iffy. But
up in the city, New York City, to see your in the
we never go that far. She always kind of meets us halfway, so it's easy for her to come down to DC. She'll catch a train or a bus.
Oh yeah.
And so we'll meet in DC, and then we have more family in Maryland, and so usually Thanksgiving is there's about 10, 11 of us in the house, and
excuse me, there's 9. There's 9. 7.
12, 15,
this year there's only going to be 9, maybe 7. 6 18 feet apart. Yeah.
That's right.
Good. So no reason to check that home.
No, this is pre-COVID. This is what we would have.
Good. And not happening now, of course.
And the reason we're not doing it now is exactly that. There's just too many of us, and
DC, I love DC, man. Oh my goodness, just a favorite city of mine.
It is. That's probably my favorite city, and my daughter lives right behind the Capitol. We walk out, and we're there at the mall, and we can go see all the different sites. And it's free.
Oh yeah. Well, one of my spots that I'm going to be going next time I go up there is a place that you need. I think you probably know all about it, but Ebenezer's Coffee House. Do you know about Ebenezer's?
That's on my mind.
Mark Batterson's.
Yeah, Batterson's
the church. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard of it, but I haven't. We go there. We're only there for a few days usually, and so it's kind of bam, 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 bam stuff. Right.
So it's supposedly across from the FBI building or federal building, and right near the Capitol. So I don't know. I haven't been there. I've just done a lot of reading of his books and different things, and follow some things of his 40-day prayer challenge, draw the circle, etc. But you cannot hit all the places in DC. You and I've been there to conferences, taking students up for many years. Nothing like 20,000 students in Washington, D.C. and staff all at one time. Yeah. Well, listen, anything else you want to tell us, though? Anything else you want to say to your wife, your kids?
Oh, well, I mean, other than tell the people that are listening that they need to read your book.
So that's the book. That's the printed copy version, but the right side there where it said, that's what you'll see on the ebook, Burn Up, Not Out. But I would get these for your volunteers. This is going to help your volunteers. It's going to help your you if you've been in a long time. It's going to help you if you have just started. But it is very impactful. Eventually, it will be in audio as well. Burn Up, Not Out. But Pepe, listen, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for spending the time. I've been really looking forward to this for a long time. Oh, well, I got to ask you this, though. Were you there in Hurricane Andrew? You were there during Hurricane Andrew.
Yeah.
Now, I went down and worked, took a crew of 55 because a kid made me. And we took 55 students and volunteers from our church and the public school, Eustis High School, and it was amazing time. The week after it happened, and I called Kent Keller up and said, Kent, I need a place to stay. He said, what? He said, I went through the hurricane. Why are you asking me? I said, well, listen, whether you let us, is Key Biscayne still standing, Presbyterian? He said, yeah, it's there. And I said, well, whether you give us a place or not, we're coming. This train's moving. And he says, we'll try to work it out then. And he did. Kent was amazing to do that. And, but where were you during Hurricane Andrew, and what were the effects that you felt, you and your family? Because that one event affected Miami forever.
Oh, it was huge. No, we were actually, during that time, I was at my first stint at a church, doing church ministry. And my wife was pregnant, and she was within the 2-week window. And again, I didn't have a lot of resources. I was in a church home. My house really wasn't boarded up. I mean, I had one thing down on one window. We put a piece of plywood on the inside and tried to prop it up because I don't have the know-how how to do stuff like that, to, drill it into the walls and stuff like that. And so we did the best we can. And then, again, it was a God thing, because we had 2 kids at that point. This was our 3rd kid we were waiting on. They were both small. And so we went that Sunday, we went to the hospital that afternoon, because they were telling people they're within the 2-week period that they should go to the hospital and wait it out there just in case, because apparently because of the pressure drop and stuff, sometimes it caused people to go into labor.
Yes.
So we went, and apparently we were kind of one of the first few to get there. And so they allowed our whole family to go in. And that was great, because a little while after, they were turning away husbands and any siblings and just taking the pregnant woman. So this huge auditorium, and they fed you, and you slept on the ground there.
Oh my goodness. That's great. I mean, that was great in that situation. For those of you who are too young to know, these were 350 mile an hour winds. Gus, and it ripped. I mean, we worked homestead. The trees, the palm trees were everything was gone or leaning up against a house. Houses had imploded. I mean, there were no street signs. There was no stoplights. It was military just to direct you. And you were just north of that, and it was still hit you guys that hard.
Yeah, it was pretty hard. And like I said, we were in the hospital. It was funny spending the night there. It looked like beached whales all across the floor. And
it was a campus life event all over again.
But you couldn't hear a lot of what's going on outside. The next day, we were able to try to get. Well, we went home. And luckily, the trees that had all fallen around our car and not on our car. And we were able to pull out of the parking lot. And then where we lived, they call it a tree city. There's just trees everywhere. Mm-hmm, and it's not palm trees. It's the big ficus tree with the shallow roots. So they were blocking all the roads. And you had to, what would have been a 5-minute drive, it could take you 45 minutes to work your way. And God was really good. And nothing happened to our house. There was a huge tree out front that went down, but it went down away from the house. But, we were without power for a couple weeks. We had the best barbecue cookouts ever for 2 weeks.
Really?
Because our church, we had a lot of people that were into the order meat of the month kind of thing. You had a freezer, and they would deliver, I don't know how many pounds of meat every month. Yeah. And so they had to eat it. So the church, everybody just said, come on, everybody, barbecue. We're going to meet here. And they would just, we had to do a lot of cleanup in the city, and we did a few service project deals and helping serve food and all. And it was a tough time. I mean, like you said, half of the county moved, everything in the Homestead area, all those people were gone. And suddenly, we were getting some of those kids relocating in our area and our schools, and kind of ballooned as far as a number of people in each school.
Oh, they moved up to Central Florida too.
All the way up. We got some of them, but a good number just kept going.
Yeah, they just kept going. How far away can we get from this? Right.
Yeah. So it was it was a crazy time. It was
the first thought when a hurricane comes for a local is the surfboard waxed? I mean, how soon can we, are the police going to stop us this time? Can we get out there? And so
we had our priorities straight.
That's right. You got to have the board, and your priority is you don't get waves like this. You got to hit the big ones. It's okay if we die. It's what we're made for. It's what we're made for. That's all
right. You can always have more kids. Yeah.
Always. Come on. Well, listen, this has been amazing. And I'm glad we hit that last thing, because that's the thing that people live in Miami. People just don't understand. If they not had a typhoon or something hit them, that was just the hardest hitting thing that we had seen in our lifetime. And it was over quick, but it just wiped a society, it wiped their geography out for a while.
Yeah, it totally redid the whole community.
I mean, that happened to an entire family here. A tornado hit us one time, and multiple tornadoes. And it wasn't during that time. It was right before that, in fact, because that was the kid that made us go to Miami. And he called us up. He says, "Can you come help our family? A tornado hit our house. I was in bed, and I looked up, and I was looking at the sky because the roof came off over his bedroom." And so that whole family came to know Christ.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, that wasn't even what you guys went through. Your entire city, the roof was ripped off of the city, you know.
Well, again, where we lived, it was mostly the flooding, the trees, and, and a lot of roof damage.
You're just north of it, of the major.
Nothing like if you drove south, it used to be just all
Homestead.
kinds of pine trees suddenly were gone. It looked like a bomb had gone off and just wiped out. Everything was leveled. It was crazy.
Kinds of stuff.
Well, this has been awesome, Doug. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you. I actually have something to say.
Oh, buddy, listen, we didn't even cover it all, but it's enough for now. Probably the world cannot handle all the information you've got. So, yeah. Hey, all right, man. I'll see you a little later, and we'll talk soon.